Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the August 17th, 2023 meeting of the Portsmouth Planning Board. Call the meeting to order, and we have two members not present this evening, Mr. Harris and Ms. Bagala. Mr. Simonis, will you sit for Mr. Harris?
Yes.
And with that, the first item on our agenda is a presentation from Mr. Peter Britz, who's Director of our Planning and Sustainability on the Capital Improvements Program.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Board. Good evening. I'm here to kick off the Capital Improvement Plan process, the CIP. I'm going to go over what the CIP is, the FY 25 through 2030 CIP timeline, and then public input opportunities in the CIP. Next slide, please. The CIP is a plan, a 6-year plan for establishing upcoming capital projects such as roadway, paving, or building improvement projects. It's a budgeting tool. It doesn't spend or commit any money, but instead identifies projects for various upcoming years and its planned budget source. Some projects move forward and become part of the later budget process. CIP is an informational tool. The public can utilize the CIP to learn more about upcoming capital projects, the timeline in which they are planned, project details, evaluation criteria, costs, links to relevant documents, and identification of project funding. Citizens have numerous public input avenues throughout the process, from the ability to request a project to public hearings throughout the document cycle. So what qualifies as a capital improvement project? Land acquisition projects, construction or expansion of public facilities, streets, utility or public infrastructure projects, rehabilitation of a public facility or public infrastructure, provided it's cost more than $50,000. Design or work or planning study related to a capital project or implementation of the master plan. Any piece of equipment, non-vehicular in nature, that costs more than $50,000, and any vehicle which has a life expectancy of more than 5 years that costs more than $50,000. Next slide, please. So how are projects evaluated and prioritized in the CIP? Projects are evaluated both financially and based on the 10 evaluation criteria above. Items that respond to federal or state requirements or address public health or safety needs take priority. Other criteria are utilized by the Planning Board and City Council to best prioritize projects. This is a list of the projects here, but I won't go through all, or the process here, but I won't go through all of them. So the process, how the process works, this sort of follows through the process with first project submission from city departments based on infrastructure needs or master plan department studies, goals, or through citizen requested project submissions. The financials are established by the finance department and illustrates the city's legal debt margin, current debt obligations, and financial needs of the CIP based on current project requests. Projects are then prioritized, reviewed by city staff to ensure compliance with financial debt margins, life safety, legal requirements, and public health needs. Public health need projects do take priority. The Planning Board plays a role in reviewing all projects with city staff in conjunction with the city's master plan. The City Council reviews projects with city staff and discusses financial implications and project priorities. The City Council can change project priorities during the CIP or the budget process. Citizen input. Citizens weigh in their opinions on project costs, priorities, and details. And then city budget. The City Council adopts the CIP in March. After adoption, all general fund projects are slated for the upcoming year and are placed into the city's budget. Project funding and priorities can be altered at any time the budget is passed, until the budget is passed. So opportunities for public input. The public can submit a project if they have a project that meets the CIP project criteria. They can submit it to the city online or the planning department at City Hall. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. The Planning Board holds CIP public hearings following the CIP presentation in December. The public can speak at those public hearings. The City Council CIP public hearing. The CIP holds a public hearing at the Capital Improvement Plan in February where the public can speak as well to the CIP. And then a City Council budget public hearing, at least one public hearing on the city's budget, which will include relevant projects from the CIP. So although it's incorporated into the budget, there's still an opportunity to comment at that point. How to submit a project. So going to the City of Portsmouth website, you can submit a project online either through your phone or computer. First, figure out if your project meets one or more of the CIP project qualifications. If it does, you can go to the Viewpoint online portal and follow this link, or just type in CIP project submission on the city's website and it'll take you there. It's in the Planning Department website under Plans and Reports. And then what is the next step? Projects are reviewed by the appropriate department. Projects are then either moved forward to the main document as its own unique project combined with an existing project, placed in a year outside of the CIP, or deemed unqualified as a CIP project. All citizens' requests are listed, including department comments, in the CIP in Appendix 1. And then the CIP process timeline. So August, September, this is where we are now. The process is just kicking off. Citizen request forms are available online now and will be until September 15th when they're due. October, citizen requests are reviewed by appropriate departments. City departments submit their project requests in October, and the CIP financials are prepared and the draft document is assembled. And then November, December, the City Council Citizens Request Subcommittee meets to review the citizen projects. The Planning Board CIP Subcommittee reviews projects. The Planning Board reviews, holds a public hearing, and votes to recommend the adoption of the CIP by the City Council. In January, February, and March, the City Council reviews, holds a public hearing, and adopts the CIP. In April, May, and June, capital projects for the upcoming fiscal year are utilized as part of the non-operating budget. The City Council considers funding projects as part of the passage of the annual budget. So that's the process, that's the timeline, and we're getting into CIP season here. So any questions or comments before you guys
Any
go on
questions from the board?
Great. So I think you're going to,
We need a
set up a
subcommittee of
committee.
3 planning board members. I'm going to reappoint myself. Greg, you served,
I did last year. If you prefer, I'd serve again.
and we need one more. I think it has to be a full member for my reading of the statute and the code. So we're down to, I think, 2.
I would love to, but time commitment, unfortunately. So
Appreciate it, Corey.
you're welcome. Sorry.
Since this does also fall under the manager's purview, do you have a thought? I think we do need a full member, not a
Right.
alternate.
It's your call. Sure. We don't have to decide it tonight either, because perhaps maybe one of the members who's not here wants to, or Mr. Hewitt, or
All right, well, I'll pull the members for the one remaining member, make a decision before the next meeting. So you will have your 3
thank you.
thanks.
Right.
at
Peter.
that time. Thank you very much, Peter.
All right, take care.
Peter, are you headed out? Are you headed out of the room?
I was gonna wait for at least a couple of these.
Okay, I wasn't shooing you away, but if you could close those doors, because
no problem, yeah.
whoever's out there,
They're really loud.
they're kind of loud. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the July 20th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
I have a correction, sir, Mr. Chair. On page 8, on the third paragraph, about halfway down, I was talking about the parking issue at that project, and I'll read the sentence as it exists now. It says, "He said the buildings would have to have between 102 and 116 spaces, and what's missing in there is in Dover." I was not comparing it to West End Yards, I was comparing it to Dover requirements.
So adding the words "in Dover."
In Dover would do it, yep.
Greg, you made the motion. You okay with that?
Yeah,
Proposed amendment?
that's
I
great.
forget who seconded it. Did you?
Edward.
Yep. Good.
Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. We have a request to postpone the application of Banfield Realty LLC as owner for property at 375 Banfield Road, requesting site plan review approval to demolish 2 existing commercial buildings and existing shed and construct a 75,000 square foot industrial warehouse building with 75 parking spaces as well as associated paving, stormwater management, lighting, utilities, and landscaping. This property is shown on Assessor's Map 266, Lot 7, and lies in the industrial district. I'd like to have a motion to continue this to a date and time certain, and this will include a postponement of the public hearing that's later in our agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Next month?
September
If
meeting?
you're asking for a date because they didn't ask for one, September meeting, so moved, September meeting.
Second.
Okay.
Yep.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It is continued. We have a public hearing on old business, and because of our requirement for recusal in the event of a potential conflict of interest, Councilor Moreau will be recusing herself from the following, which is request the Tanner Family Revocable Trust as owner for property located at 380 Greenleaf Avenue, requesting a wetland conditional use permit according to section 10.1017 of the zoning ordinance for construction of a new 20 by 20 foot, 1-story garage on residential property with various additions of native buffer plantings and areas of stormwater improvement to mitigate any impervious impacts from the garage. Proposal includes removal of 885 square feet of impervious asphalt, installation of a 2-foot drip edge of crushed stone around the perimeter of the garage, and 484 square feet of pervious pavers leading up to the garage where the asphalt currently exists. Additional planting beds are proposed in areas of existing asphalt. This property is on Assessor's Map 243, Lot 63, and lies in the Single Residence B or SRB district. Who is here to present this application?
My name is Allison Tanner. I am a resident with my husband and owner of 380 Greenleaf Avenue.
Thank you.
So our home was constructed in 1979, which is approximately 15 years before any wetland buffer restrictions existed. And we've occupied the house the entire time. The lot is about 1.14 acres, and a little over half of it is buffer, and a little under half is wetland. We would like to construct, as you said, a 20 by 20 foot 2-car garage on the paved area of the driveway. Right now, the driveway is 1,285 square feet of impervious surface area. The area under the garage would just be 400 by 400, 20 by 20, which is 400 square feet. And so we're reducing the impervious surface area by 885 square feet. Right now, the pavement runs up to 25 feet from the wetland, and we will move the garage away from the wetland so that its closest point is 45 feet away. And we'll use erosion control during construction. No trees or shrubs will be disturbed for this. We will remove a little bit of the lawn, which we have hardly any on the property anyway, but we'll remove that to put a 2-foot drip edge around the garage. There's a planting bed that's on the north side that will bring down right up to about the crushed stone area. And you can see on this diagram, the gray part is where it's paved right now, and that'll all be removed. We'll put the garage in that spot that you can see, and then the red line is supposed to indicate the 2-foot drip edge of crushed stone that goes around the perimeter of it to catch any water that comes off the roof. The lot is completely, I'm a gardener, and so it's got planting beds and trees and shrubs everywhere. You can't see the house from the road at this time of year, and you can barely see it during the winter because we're so far back and because it's so heavily treed. And this is the most likely spot without causing any disturbance and actually improving buffer by reducing the amount of impervious surface area. Do you want to go through pictures? Or? So this is showing our house. We have solar panels on the top, so that's why it looks a little funny. And the garage is located further away from the wetland than the pavement is at the moment. And if you go to the next slide, so this is the plan that we propose to order if we're granted the conditional use permit. And, it's very modest in size. And then this is the pavement, the driveway, and we're looking north toward the house. And then we're looking from the house down the driveway, looking south. And so that the planting bed that you see on the left-hand side of the lower picture would be moved up to on the other side of the cars, basically. So that entire area would become planting bed. Next slide. And this is basically showing where the garage would be located, the black dashed line, looking east toward the wetland and then looking west over the rest of the garden. And these pictures were taken in early spring, so it really doesn't do it justice. It looks like a jungle at the moment, but. Next picture. This is showing we have the wetland buffer markers in place, and we're looking toward the wetland on both of those pictures, showing the native plantings and planting bed. Next.
I think that was the last slide.
Oh, is it the
Yep.
last slide? Okay. So does anyone have any questions?
Any questions of the board? No questions from the board? Thank you very much. I'll open up the public hearing. Public hearing is open on this. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak to, for, or against this application? Anybody online?
If anyone on Zoom would like to speak, please raise your hand.
I'm going to wait a second because
Yeah, sometimes.
what happened last month. Nobody on Zoom, and nobody in attendance. I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Discussion, we have to begin with findings of fact, I believe.
To go ahead and get that started, I'll make a motion that we vote to find that the conditional use permit application meets the criteria set forth in section 10.1017.60 and adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Want to explain it, or be self-explanatory?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see that it's in the footprint of the driveway. They're installing a drip edge, which currently does not exist, and also the entire property being in the wetland buffer. This seems like the most reasonable location for it, so.
I think it's an improvement over the existing conditions, reduction in impervious, increase in pervious.
Okay. Have a motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll make a motion we vote to grant the wetland conditional use permit with the following two stipulations as outlined in the staff memorandum.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We have a public hearing on a new matter for tonight. I guess it's been here before. Request of Nurborn Family Revocable Trust as owner for property located at 189 Gate Street, requesting to modify the conditions of approval of the previously approved conditional use permit for an accessory dwelling unit granted on April 21st, 2022. This property is shown on Assessor's Map 103 as Lot 6 and lies within the General Residence B, GRB, and Historic Districts. This property is on Assessor's Map 103, Lot 6, and lies within the GRB and Historic Districts. Who is here to present this application?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm Attorney John Boson on behalf of the Nairborn Family Revocable Trust. With me this evening is Judy Nairborn and her two daughters, Kelly and Caitlin. And as you may recall, this board did approve a conditional use permit for an accessory dwelling unit on April 21st, 2022, with certain conditions. And tonight we're here just asking that two of those conditions be modified. The first condition requires that the applicant install a fence along, or on the boundary line between 189 Gate Street and 199 Gate Street. In your packet, we did submit a property survey and an easement plan that identifies a fence easement area. And to satisfy concerns of the neighbors, we're requesting that the condition of approval be changed from requiring that the fence be installed on the property line to that the fence be constructed on the western edge of the fence easement area on 189 Gate Street. It's a very minimal movement, but it satisfies the neighbors. It resolves the litigation that took place in the Superior Court, so we're just asking that this board approve that modification. And the other modification is that the decision states that all stipulations of approval must be completed prior to the issuance of a building permit. But we do need to do some improvements that require a building permit, so we'd request that the approval just be modified to state that the stipulations of approval would be completed prior to the issuance of a building permit. That's it.
The first modification, it's a fence that's to be constructed, correct?
Yes,
So shouldn't it say to be constructed, not is constructed?
yes, it should, that's correct.
So that'd be one small,
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we do need to construct the fence.
because there's a fence there now that's not in the right spot.
Yeah, so
correct?
we're going to move it in that easement area, and that satisfies the neighbor's concern. So we wanted to make sure that what we put in the ground was consistent with the approval we got from this board.
Any other questions of the applicant? Yes, go ahead.
So just to be clear, so the easement, the easement is from the applicant to the abutter, and obviously the fence is going to be on this easement. So who ultimately is going to be responsible for this fence?
It'll be on my client's property, so we're going to incur the cost. It'll be our fence, but, we're going to incur the cost, and we'll be responsible for it.
Okay, so just clarify the purpose of the easement for the abutter?
Well, I guess the reason we're here is because the decision said that we had to construct a fence on the property line. And that was, and we did that at, what we thought was at the neighbor's request at the initial hearing. But as we got into the appeal, they wanted that fence moved over into this easement area. So we're just moving the fence over probably a couple inches onto it's towards my client's property.
Without the easement, the abutter wouldn't be able to go up to the fence.
Right.
Without the easement, the abutter wouldn't be able-
So
Oh, I see.
it's not clear in the,
I'm just trying to figure out, because obviously you can't grant an easement to yourself, so I'm trying to figure out,
Right.
who's benefiting, how is the abutter benefiting from this? And is it just so they can take care of that little tiny
Yeah, I mean,
slice of lawn?
I'm not sure that the easement really has much to do with the request, because the request is really
Okay.
that we want to make sure we're putting the fence in an area that is approved by this board, and this board said we had to put it on the property line, and the neighbors wanted us to move it closer to the Nearborn's house.
Sure.
So we're just, it's a minimal change, but it's a change to the site plan. Because it's a conditional use permit, it can't be done administratively, it has to come before this board. So it's it's a slight movement, but nonetheless, it's one that requires your approval.
Okay.
I'm not sure the easement is helping clarify the issue.
Yeah, I think it's confusing me on the issue, but
Yeah.
I do understand it. I just,
We're just trying to make sure that what
well,
we put
just
in
as
the
a point
ground
of,
is
as a point of
consistent.
clarification, though, with the fence being on your client's property, with the easement running up to the fence, the abutters would have the right to walk up to the fence,
Correct.
do whatever the easement allows them to do in that space, right?
That's right. That is
Okay.
correct.
So they can trim the grass
They can
within
trim the
6 feet
grass
of
and
the
they can-
fence
yeah.
on their side
On their side.
of the fence, basically.
And of course, the fence will be installed friendly side out, so,
And then there's a reciprocal easement for the driveway out front.
right, that has nothing to do with,
Nothing to do with us, just point of information.
yeah.
Any other questions of the applicant?
I move to amend the conditions of approval as presented.
I think this is a
Oh,
public
so-
hearing.
Sorry.
This is a public hearing.
Yes, you will take public comment.
Yes, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'm going to open the public hearing on this. Does anybody here wish to speak to, for, or against this application? Including anybody on Zoom? I'm going to close the public hearing unless somebody raises their hand. Public hearing is closed.
I move to amend the conditions of approval as presented.
Second.
Shall we add the words "to be constructed" to the fence so that
Or,
it's...
yeah, including that stipulation.
Any other discussion?
Obviously, it benefits the abutter, not the applicant, so. and
Well, it solves litigation, so that benefits everybody.
solves litigation, and there's nobody objecting.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We have a request of Whitney and Robert Westell as owners on property located 198 Essex Avenue, requesting a wetland conditional use permit according to section 10.1017 of the zoning ordinance for the following: demolition of existing garage in breezeway and construction of a new 753 square foot attached garage with a patio and deck. Construction of a new addition located 62 feet from the wetland and completely within the 100-foot buffer, resulting in a total impervious impacts of 993 square feet. This property is located in Assessor's Map 232, Lot 128, and lies in the SRB district. And I understand Corey will need to recuse himself from this one. Who's here to present for this application?
I am Robert Westell, the owner of the house.
Thank you. Go ahead.
You
Oh.
bring up the slides.
I have them up here, but
You forgot to share.
not sharing. Let me share.
If you could go to the survey map.
He's getting there.
Yeah, there's a lot of drawings. I apologize. So one back. So the existing dwelling, top button's the pointer.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Existing dwelling essentially exists on the
Speak into the microphone.
north.
Speak into the microphone.
Existing dwellings on the north edge of the north east corner of the property. The bottom of the survey map is south. The wetland buffer kind of cuts up this way. Our wetland exists primarily on the south, along the south border of the property. About 86% of the property is within the wetland buffer. This square right here is the existing garage. This remaining rectangle is the existing dwelling. If you go to the next slide, or next page up. So these are the proposed conditions that we're going for. We're going to construct a new garage with a primary bedroom and bathroom above. That's going to be approximately 1,300 square foot addition. And then approximately a 300-foot addition, which would be an extension to the family room on the south and west side of the property. The existing dwelling distance from the wetland is approximately 76 feet from the wetland buffer, and we would be encroaching approximately 12 feet into that buffer. Our proposals for betterment, which we went before the Wetland Commission for, or the Environmental Commission for, if you go to the next slide, is to improve the vegetative buffer. Right now that our area of lawn is this line here. It goes this way, this way, this way, and this. So we would restore the 25-foot setback as much as we could on the property. We would provide erosion control during construction. We would try to capture rainwater coming off the roof. The new roof area versus the existing roof area is approximately, during a 1-inch storm event, would be approximately 300 gallons. So we propose to capture that in rain barrels. Other betterments that we're offering are the deck that we're proposing. We're proposing that's going to have a 1/4-inch gap between the deck boards to let rain filter through, and then underneath that deck, we would have approximately 8 inches of crushed stone to help retain some of that water runoff. And then the other requests, they made 2 more requests. One was if we cut down any non-invasive trees, that we replace them on the property, so we're willing to do that. And then the other one was any exterior lighting would comply with dark sky requirements, so we do that as well.
Thank you. Any questions to the applicant? Mr. Gregg.
The north addition looks like it's mostly in the footprint of the existing garage.
Correct. So the existing garage is actually non-conforming. It extends over the side lot
Yeah,
back.
I can see that you moved it back.
So we're pulling it back.
Yep.
It's approximately 4 or 6 inches, depending on which corner of the garage you're at.
And then the deck and patio. Okay,
Yep.
so what is in that location currently?
So currently in this location, if you go back a slide,
Yeah, I'm looking at it, but I just don't see a description. Another deck? Oh, 3-season porch.
so currently we have a 3-season porch right here, and then in between the 3-season porch and the garage bump out is, at one time it was a bluestone patio. It has brick, concrete. There's a grill there. At one time they must have had some kind of raised grill cooking thing that's knocked down to 1 block tall. So currently there's over 100 square feet of impervious surface there that would get removed as part of our addition.
Based on the 1/4-inch spacing.
Yep.
But then when you get to phase 2, which is an addition that is a structure,
Yep.
what is the net impact
So-
on pervious versus impervious in phase 2?
For just phase 2, I did overalls, including the first and second for that.
I think it's important the way you labeled them as 3 separate projects, if you will. You
Yep.
did phase 1, phase 2, and you didn't label the deck as phase 1.5 or 3. Phase 2 has the most impact. I think that pervious
Yep.
versus impervious number is pretty important.
Yeah, let me see if I have it.
I think phase 2 includes the deck.
So phase 2 would include the deck as well.
Oh, okay. I just see the pink line didn't go where the deck
Right,
is.
in the text it says,
Got it. Sorry, I was looking at a drawing.
So I don't have the numbers broken out specifically, but I do have a spreadsheet that accounts for all the square footages for all the different pieces that I could produce that number.
I see the 2 pages of spreadsheet. Sorry,
Yep.
I just can't do that with my fingers.
Is the text on the plan correct?
Yes, so I believe what I did was I included for the part 2, the part 1 as well, because it would include both of them.
So the phase 2 numbers are as noted parenthetically, inclusive of phase 1.
Correct. So we could probably subtract those. I can't see them even with my glasses.
$217 square feet
Of reduced or increased?
increased.
Impervious versus pervious.
Proposed
Impervious
building.
inside, so under phase 2, phase 2 N1 is 1,900 square feet, and phase 1 is 1,700 square feet, including the existing dwelling.
190 then.
I'm good.
Yes, Andrew.
I may have missed it, but I'm just curious what the foundation and basement depth is for phase 2.
So phase 2, we would go It would be pending cost, whether or not we'd have a crawl space or go full depth.
But there will be a disconnect between the deck and patio in that phase 2 portion.
Correct.
Maybe I missed it, but the Phase 2 addition on that part of the house, can you explain the layout of the house that makes it the logical spot to put it
Sure.
there?
We could go forward a couple slides. Keep going. Keep going. It's all demo. Second deck, first deck. Keep going. Existing, existing, existing. Basement. Garage. Okay, this is the new addition. Oop. So existing house, if you see this small cross here, is actually the existing corner, which would be the corner of the existing dining room. Family room is this long rectangle here, and our kitchen is here. Proposed design removes the two walls and extends that room out this full size, providing a larger family room space. The current family room would become the dining room, and then the kitchen would remain where it is today. As far as layout of the house, again, it's a 1940s bungalow. As far as extending out from the house, we don't have a lot of room to extend forward towards the street because of the street setback and the shape of the house. Working with the existing roof lines and the flow of the house, and also trying to capture some of the view on our property, extending it out this side of the house was the most favorable direction to go.
Thank you for that explanation. Yes, Greg?
Did you consider putting phase 2, the addition, to the southwest where the past three-season porch is versus going south closer to the wetland setback?
So the existing three-season porch is right about here. We have our existing kitchen, which has a window there. We had redone the kitchen probably about 3 or 4 years ago. We like daylight in the kitchen, so we want to maintain this window. And we don't want to redesign our kitchen because we just redid it.
But it's possible to move it to the southwest versus the south.
It's possible, but you'd have to relocate the kitchen.
So it's a cost issue, not really a wetlands
Correct.
preservation issue. Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Open up the public hearing. No public hearing on this. Is anybody here or on Zoom who wish to speak to, for, or against this application? No Zoom hands raised. I'm going to close the public hearing. Board discussion? Yes, Greg?
I just really have a problem moving further closer to the setback and increasing the impervious regardless of how much it is when there is an opportunity to do something different.
Yes,
I
John?
just want to say, perhaps when I scroll down further into the to the packet and you see there's an incredible amount of detail here to architecturally explain what's going on, and it's a very well thought out plan. It really aesthetically as well, and some of the perspectives you get an understanding of why that has to occur where it does architecturally. I understand that's not our purview and that's not what our primary. My point is, I understand how the applicant got to this place. It's very logical and very well thought out.
That's why I asked him to explain it.
Yeah.
It's a tough one because cost is not a criteria.
It's not a hardship.
The Conservation Commission, yes, Beth? go ahead.
I was just going to state that they are actually going to great lengths to actually restore some of the vegetative buffer, and some of the positives that come out of this for the wetland is really, I think, what mitigates the addition with the limited space of which how to actually expand the property. The getting rid of the invasive species, the getting rid of the lawn, and actually putting in all of the I'm losing my words tonight because I'm too tired. Natural, native, that's the word I was looking for. Native plants there. I think that, the good outweighs the bad in this case. And I think that's more of our determination.
Andrew?
Yeah, I don't think it should be looked over that they do have some topographic.
Topographic.
Not the only one.
That was it. Topographic challenges as well. Looks like in the southwest portion, so up on page 66 of the package. So I think that ultimately, when we think of like future stewards of a property and improving these types of projects, this family has probably understood the drainage and the way that this lawn and how the water flows throughout their property to the best of their ability, and are making some of these improvements based on that knowledge. We can do a lot two-dimensionally and through these data points, but ultimately I can see how 86% of your property being in the buffer is a hurdle to start with. And at the end of the day, I do think that this gentleman has done his due diligence to understand exactly how to correct almost an unsolvable problem. So yeah, it's less bad. Not great, but less bad. And I think that the Conservation Commission's efforts probably were carried through.
Greg?
Comment though, I mean, I'm getting more comfortable with it, but what I'm not seeing, I'm reading something from the Concom that says additional method of infiltration shall be provided for the rain barrel overflows. What about all the drainage off all the new construction, gutters, things like that? I'm not sure who would answer that, the applicant, I would think.
Well, we don't ask that now.
Yeah, but
I think they'll be directed to the rain barrels.
Right. They have a lot of rain barrels.
Okay.
To me, this points out a deficiency with our ordinance. I've said this before. I think this is an application that is and should be approved and may yet be approved here in a few minutes, but I think we're constrained, some of us, by the language in the existing ordinance. I'd like to see it change. We have a meeting with the Conservation Commission soon to talk about this sort of a change. I'd like to keep this application in mind when we talk about that, because I agree with the people making positive comments. This is an improvement to the site. And right now, it's specifically in our regulation that cost is not a criteria, and maybe it should be. But maybe the other criteria should also be. And it doesn't say if you're making it better, we should approve it. I think it should. Enough lecturing. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'm somewhat sympathetic to the applicant. He's kind of a victim of circumstance. This house was built, I think, in 1940, and then the city came along and then dropped this 100-foot buffer closer or somewhat through his existing house. So he's really locked down to pretty much any future improvements unless we consider his situation. And I look at it, the edge of his home now is 74 feet, and he's going to be pushing it another 12. And in my mind, it's kind of a de minimis issue, and I would feel, if I was in his position, that the rules have unfairly constrained me. So that's where I'm thinking.
Thank you. Any? Yes.
I'd be happy to make a motion.
I was just about to ask for that.
I'll make a motion that we vote to find that the conditional use permit application meets the criteria set forth in section 10.1017.50 and to adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. No, I'm in favor. Aye, if you didn't hear me.
Unanimously passed.
Three ayes for Greg.
Yeah, however many you want.
Just because there's empty seats beside you doesn't mean you get
It's
to
gonna
vote.
vote for everybody.
My friends.
I will continue to make a motion to vote to grant the wetland conditional use permit with the included stipulations 2.1 through 2.7 in the memo.
I will second.
Any discussion?
I'll just touch on it briefly. I do think that they've gone to great extents to add the rain barrels, to add the filtration through the deck, to add the vegetative buffer where now lawn sits. I think the mitigating circumstances are something that really make this an approvable project where they really have, and I've seen this many times before where, yes, we did come in and change the buffer from 50 feet to 100 feet, and existing properties all become very much backwards. So I have no problem approving this because of all those reasons.
It's an improvement.
It is.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is request of Aviation Avenue Group LLC as applicant for property at 80 Rochester Avenue, otherwise known as 100 New Hampshire Avenue, requesting an amended site plan approval for construction of a 101,200 square foot footprint, including 4,700 square feet of office space and associated site improvements consisting of parking, loading docks, underground utilities, landscaping, lighting, and a stormwater management system. This property is on Assessor's Map 308, Lot 1, and lies within the Pease Industrial PI District. Who is here to speak to this application?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm Attorney John Boson. I represent the applicant. We're here tonight requesting an amendment to the site plan that was approved by this board on April 20th, 2023. With me tonight from Aviation Avenue Group is John Stebbins, Evan Tormey, and Jay Gemeni. We're also accompanied by our project engineer, Neil Hansen from Ty and Bond. In a nutshell, this board approved our site plan for an advanced manufacturing facility, but shortly after receiving the approvals, my client realized that the advanced manufacturing facility was much weaker than originally anticipated. But fortunately, the market was stronger for a supply chain and logistics management type user, and they were able to sign a lease with a company that needs basically 100,000 square foot facility that does white glove delivery of furniture and large home goods items. Still in industrial use in the industrial zone, but the end user is less intense than what was previously approved. The building will have fewer employees, there'll be less parking demand, there's fewer parking spaces, so less traffic coming in and out of the site. But some minor changes to the site plan, which Neil will go over with you. Project has gone before the PDA on June 15th, and their board did recommend conditional approval of the plan. We've been to TAC on July 15th, and now we seek your recommendation of approval. So with that background, I'd like to have Neil come up, walk you through the change to the site plan, and myself, Neil, and any of the members of Aviation Avenue Group happy to answer any questions you have, but essentially here for an amendment of the site plan.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Neil Hansen with Ty and Bond. So John did a pretty good job of, really good job, sorry, of describing the changes we made to the plans. I'll go through it in a little bit more detail, but it's pretty straightforward. So the building footprint is, as John mentioned, is now just over 100,000 square feet, which is a reduction. The previously approved building was north of 200,000 square feet. The site now only has 68 vehicle parking spaces. There are 19 trailer storage spaces in the rear of the building, and there's 30 loading bays on the building for the home delivery service use that John described. If you could go ahead, I think 2 or 3 sheets. One more. Thank you. So for the stormwater system, we did reduce the size of the previously approved system to handle just the impervious surfaces that are proposed as part of this amended plan. The system itself is identical to what was previously approved. It's an underground detention system that goes into a proprietary stormwater filtration unit. The sizes of both those systems are just reduced a little bit for the reduction in overall impervious that's now on the site. We did have, Underwood did a third-party review on the amended plan, and we responded to their few comments and closed out that review with them. And we have also received an amended alteration of terrain permit for this reduced scope on the project. Similarly, the utility connections are almost identical to what was previously approved. Same locations, same services. We've done some additional coordination with Eversource to dial that design in a little bit more, but it's the same connection points in the street and same number of transformers from what was on the original approval. Same thing with the landscaping plan, just amended to the reduced footprint of the building. The other key piece that I want to touch on is we included a traffic memo in the packet that described the reduction in use from the original approval. The original project included just under 1,000 total daily trips. This amended site approval has just under 300 daily trips, so it's a significant reduction in vehicle traffic to the site. That also includes truck trips, which have been reduced. We now have the home delivery box trucks that John mentioned, and there will be a few larger trucks coming to the site daily to bring in the goods that are going to be assembled and then delivered from this facility. But overall, it's a significant reduction in traffic as well. So that's the overview of the site. Have anything else? That's it. And we'll take any questions that you have.
Questions from the board? Greg, is that your hand?
I'm so sorry, but your drawings continue to rotate every time you come down through here. So the primary access to this is on Rochester now?
Yes, so the access is the same for the site. So trucks, so north is on the right of this orientation, south is to the left. So the trucks will come in Aviation Avenue, which is up off the page here from Route 33 and 95, and then come down Lee Street directly into the site. And then the trucks will also leave the same way, back out Lee Street, Aviation to Grafton Road. The car access onto the site is off of New Hampshire Ave right here, and they will likely also either come from Grafton Road, Route 33 from the south, or from Route 16 to the north. But the vehicle circulation is the same as the previous approval.
Okay. What was my other question? You answered my other questions. I'm good. Thanks.
Yes, Jim.
Yes, I was wondering, you said earlier the PDA board has already approved this project, is that right?
Correct.
And so I'm just curious, why are you before us? Can't you build the project now with PDA board approval?
The PDA had requested that we come back through the TAC and planning board process.
Was that a condition of their approval?
Yeah, I think it's just standard. I don't, Mike, if you want to comment on that.
Sure. Michael Mates, Director of Engineering for Peace Development Authority. So with the change of use, the applicant had to come back through the whole site review process. They came back to the Board of Directors. They got conceptual approval. That allowed them to file a site review application with the city for a review through the TAC and the planning board. That's why we're here.
Oh, okay, so you have conceptual approval from the PDA board?
That's it.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
I think Andrew and then Beth.
I also have a clarification, but more towards our board. If this use were to change and the parking and traffic impact became larger, is that something that they are coming back to this board for?
Well, they're coming back for changes anyway.
Irrespective of this proposal, but just future considerations.
I don't know if
And
Mike,
the reason
if we just do a change of use.
I'll take a stab at that. It's likely, yes, we would, depending on how significant of a change it is.
Sure.
And I believe it's at the PDA's discretion what constitutes a significant enough change to warrant coming back to TAC and planning board.
And the only reason I bring it up is because initially when we had this proposal, we did have some neighbors, abutters, both towns and property-wise, speak up and talk about their concerns. And so I'm trying to understand what constitutes that change, right? And so this seems like a pretty drastic reduction in that initial approval, which is great. But then future-wise, what can we expect or try to understand better?
Which is speculative at this point, so it's.
Yeah, it was more.
I can't really answer that question.
More of a clarification for our side, to be honest.
Perfectly obfuscated. Yes, Beth?
I actually have a question for staff, because under the review, when it went through your TAC, you had two stipulations, which one is in our memo, and the other one, it was sort of after the third-party stormwater report was reviewed by DPW. If they have any comments or whatnot, I'm just wondering if we need to include that revisions will be made based off of those comments or not. That just wasn't in there, and I just wanted to double-check where that stood. It's sort of, this line is sort of missing.
Right, so there were other comments that Public Works made during their TAC review, and I think
Okay.
those have all been addressed. So
Okay,
the only one that was
that's it.
carried over was the reviewing the third-party report.
That's what I needed to
Yeah.
know. Thank you.
Yes, Greg?
Yeah, I'm looking at C102-1 and C102-2, and I just wanted some clarification. Looks like the truck exit is actually onto Lee Street, not Aviation, correct?
So aviation, and this is a good vantage point, this page, aviation runs east-west here, and then there's this 90-degree corner. This is still aviation. So aviation has a 90-degree bend in it before it, and Lee Street is, if you go one more page, Peter, Lee Street runs parallel to the 90-degree bend of aviation. So the aviation.
I'm very familiar. My office is on Aviation.
Okay.
But I'm seeing your plan on 102.2, your parking lot exit onto Lee Street via Rochester. Basically, you're going to go straight across Rochester onto Lee and then onto Aviation.
Yes.
Okay. So you're not exiting onto Aviation, you're exiting onto Rochester. I mean, on Lee.
Going straight across Rochester onto Lee, left onto aviation.
Great. Got it. Past the PDA building.
Yes, exactly.
Why wouldn't you just go straight down Rochester by turning left?
I don't believe that's the most direct access to Grafton.
Okay.
Isn't Rochester dead end too? I don't have the bigger map, and I don't have all the streets
I'm
memorized.
just very
so-
familiar with it, and what I'm trying to tell you is basically Aviation Avenue is a potholed mess.
Yeah, I mean, my office is on Corporate Drive, which is also a pothole mess. So it's, I think
I'm good.
I have a question. I think it might be for Mike, Director of Engineering, I think. Did I get that correct?
That's correct.
In the transportation master plan for Pease that I haven't studied, but I just looked at it a little bit this afternoon, it seems the Route 33 entrance is your primary entrance for the entire Pease project in terms of traffic volumes.
Well, there's three entrances into the trade port. There's one at 33, one at Route 16 at exit 1 on Gosling Road, and one at Route 16 and exit 3 at the roundabout.
But isn't, according to the data, the one on Grafton is the heaviest volume?
I haven't looked at the data recently, so if you say so. Okay.
But the study stops and didn't include the Route 33 intersection in the study from 2010 that's recently been updated. But I understand you've agreed to study the Route 33 intersection as a part of the prior approval?
No, we didn't. We actually got up and stated that Route 33 is the jurisdiction of NHDOT.
I
We
understand
have no jurisdiction there, and in fact, we're not permitted to spend money off a trade port. It'd be considered a diversion of revenue, and I think FAA might have something to say about that.
I think that's a separate question. So you hadn't planned, I thought,
Well, the planning board made a condition that the PDA request they look at the traffic on Route 33 towards Greenland, taking into account the truck stop. But that was just a request. I don't think the.
do you intend to look at any of the Route 33 traffic?
We can't.
You can look at it, you can't do anything about it.
We can't spend money on it.
So
For improvements or analysis?
Mr. Chairman, if I can jump in, the Rockingham Planning Commission is forming a group to have a charrette at the end of the month, and perhaps that conversation will be beneficial or informative to the planning board, but
I just like to get it clear. I understand you can't do improvements off-site. That, I think Attorney Boson made that clear at the last meeting. But you are putting additional traffic onto an intersection immediately off-site on the state highway. Are you saying you are precluded from analyzing that?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so for the record, you're saying you can't, the Pease Development Authority cannot look at the Route 33 intersection.
I'm not a lawyer, but that's the way I understand it.
Would the lawyer agree with that position? Lawyer does agree?
Yeah, I think they are precluded by state law from spending any money off-site.
Including for analysis.
I'm not sure. I can't say one way or another.
Okay, so, but now back to the manager's point, and maybe you can clarify what the Rockingham Planning Commission is going to do?
I was not aware of what the city manager just spoke about, because I haven't.
It's more a staff level conversation.
Yeah, we haven't had a meeting since June, so I haven't been informed lately. All of our meetings have been in the summertime, or usually take hiatus. So I think my September meeting will be the first one, so I can get an update at that point. But
Just so I'd like to make something clear. I'm not trying to create a problem. I'm just looking at the data. And your 2010 master plan shows significantly heavier volumes of traffic projected at that location than your other entrance points. And the 2020 projections, it goes up even more. If you can't look at it or don't want to look at it, whichever it may be, that's the way it might be. But you heard some of the comments we got at the last meeting, and it seems like it's something that will need to be addressed. Maybe it's in the form of PDA requesting the state of New Hampshire to look at it. I don't know, but it seems like it's something that should be addressed.
Mr. Chair.
I just want to say, for the record, consistent with the planning board's prior decision, one of the stipulations was that this board requested the PDA to make that study on Route 33, and I think it would be fair to have that same condition carry forward. I think this board can request it. Whether they can actually do it or not, I don't know. But I think you can request it because you did it before. It seems like a fair,
And Greg?
I like Attorney Bozen's comment. I hope that maybe we restate it in the change of approval, because there are three entrances to the Pease. One's in Portsmouth, one is sort of kind of in Greenland, and the other one is in Newington. And the definition of regional impact, I think, is pretty important here. And I went to a Newington Select Board meeting on Monday, which they had a lot of vitriol to the process of how things at Pease affect them, and they don't like having any, and they don't like not having any say in it, even though the northern entrance and exit is in Newington. And so if you go out that way with a tractor trailer, you got to go through that silly traffic circle that a tractor trailer can't go through without driving over the thing that's not really part of the traffic circle. And 33 is an absolute disaster because that's how I go home. But we don't have the authority, but we do have the authority to talk about things that are regional impact. And I think we should make that point when we can, because Greenland and Newington are going to get mad at us for not recognizing the decisions of the impact of the decisions we make. That's my point.
I just want to make a point that we don't make decisions, we make recommendations. Just to be perfectly clear. The PDA makes the final decision. We make recommendations to them, and that's really all.
Right, but they haven't recommended what we're talking about, so I'd like that on the record so they've heard it from us.
Are there any plans to update the transportation master plan?
So at this time, We have not realized the pre-COVID traffic that we've experienced when we did the 2016 analysis. So at this time, we're not planning on doing that until we see more traffic to the point where it needs to be updated, because we don't have new data that says it's any different.
And are you monitoring all the study intersections to make that determination, or how do you?
Yeah, so in our master plan update, there was a number of intersections identified to be watching. That was in 2010. In 2016, we did another analysis. We did counts at all of those intersections, and then we were going to do more, but then COVID hit, and we haven't gotten back to the pre-COVID numbers, so we haven't initiated another study yet.
So you're monitoring it?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. Is this a public hearing?
Yes.
Any other questions of the applicant? Fees is such a confusing thing sometimes. I'm going to open the public hearing. Anybody here or on Zoom wish to speak to, for, or against this application? Raise your hand if you're on Zoom. If you wish to speak to, for, or against. Otherwise, I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed.
Excuse me. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. We vote to recommend amended site plan approval to the PDA board with the following conditions. 1.1, third-party stormwater report shall be reviewed by the DPW. And I will also list off the other recommendations that were made also back in April to be added to this. Unless anybody, well, I'll read through them and then we can discuss. So
Second.
it would be 1.2, applicant monitor pedestrian safety for the first 6 months or up to a year after full occupancy and report back to city staff. Applicant will coordinate with the PDA, DPW, and city staff to set up and schedule monitoring. 1.3, require all truck deliveries to use the Interstate I-95 and Route 33 entrance. 1.4, request the PDA look at traffic on Route 33 towards Greenland, taking into account the TA truck stop. 1.5, the PDA should consider analysis of existing traffic conditions for the next 5 to 10 years post-construction with a report back to the Portsmouth Planning Board. And 1.6, applicant shall monitor trip generation for 1 to 2 years after full building occupancy.
Thank you for reading those. And we have a second, even before they were all read.
He generally stated them. He was just.
Yes, you remembered all of those. I know you did.
Of course I did.
Any discussion?
I think, well, basically adding those same stipulations that we had back this spring are going to help codify, all the different concerns that ourselves and others have had about basically this development and creating additional both pedestrian issues and traffic issues throughout the Peace Complex and onto Route 33 and I-95.
I know there was some confusion about development of regional impact at the prior meeting. I don't know if that's been clarified or if anybody has any additional information about that. If not, any other discussion about the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We're nearing the end here. Conservation Commission meeting, do we have a doodle date?
We have a potential date. We need to confirm tomorrow likely, but it might be as soon as August 30th. If that doesn't work out, we're probably going to maybe extend into October because the other dates we just didn't get. We wanted to have as much representation from both bodies as we can.
Tough time of year.
Yeah, and I've actually had, since the doodle poll, something come up on the 30th.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, that's good to know.
It's
So
tough when you answer many of those and nobody gets back to you at the right time. They all want the same date. Yeah.
So unfortunately, that's not going to be soon.
Right. But we'll just keep throwing out polls till we get a good number of folks.
Okay.
Yep.
And so, just to remind everybody, it's to talk about, well, just to have a meeting so that the two boards can talk with each other, and also to talk about I know they've got a draft on the wetlands
Right.
buffer, the whole wetlands conditional use permit for us to look at, proposed amendment. Planning Board rules and procedures, this has only been on my agenda since October of last year, and I have met many times with legal counsel since, gosh, I don't remember, earlier this year. Just late this afternoon, I received the draft from legal department, and so what I plan to do is go through it, possibly make some notes. It'll get circulated to you board members for comments, you can get back to Peter and myself. I'll look at them. I'll plan to meet again with legal department to review those comments, and hopefully we'll have that in shape for a discussion, possible vote at this September meeting. It all began because our current rules are out of date in terms of the statute. They're only 20 years old, literally, and they just don't conform with Robert's rules or the statute. And so what started is just simple cleanup, addressing those things. Once you get the legal department reviewing things, and then once you get my brain engaged with them and reviewing things, it expands a little bit. So there's just been more edits. So that's where that is. The only other thing on master plan, I've recontacted the superintendent of schools, who's reached out to the high school faculty. So everybody's talking. I'll have more to talk about at the September meeting about that as well, and whether we'll have some buy-in from the students and faculty on the master plan process. Unless anybody has anything else, I'm going to, yes?
Small question. On the website, City of Portsmouth website, Planning Board particular, the contact form has been changed to say, use this form to contact the committee chair and the staff liaison. What's a committee chair? Is that you?
Yeah, that's me.
You're the board chair.
Yeah,
Okay. And the staff liaison.
that's him.
Why are we sending public comment to, or questions and all this kind of stuff to a volunteer, our board chair who's diligently working, trying to keep our actual business alive and together?
They've done it with the HDC, and I'm not sure what else.
We're just trying to make consistent the ability for people to reach out to the boards and commissions. And so that word committee should be board in this case.
Clearly.
And, so every board and commission has the chairman and the staff liaison getting inquiries via email.
So that's consistent among other boards?
We are in the process of making it consistent across the website.
Gotcha. Just seems like it's adding work to you, Rick. I think the staff should absorb that.
I'll complain if it gets to be burdensome, but thank you.
Sending a test right now. This is the first I've seen it. I mean, you haven't seen
doing
it
it right now?
just to see
Everything.
if you get it or if I get it.
All right. Sorry.
Or both.
That's it.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I am going to adjourn the meeting, and we will have, I presume, a new member as an alternate soon, sitting in the audience.
Was that city
No.
council approved yet or not?
It'll be Monday night.
Monday
Oh,
night.
next Monday.
You're not-
Thank you.
Monday night. So,
Excellent.
So you still have time to say no?
Okay.
I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.